All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit quickly about how we can predict ROI or return on investment for our Google Ads campaign. Okay. These are a couple things we're going to need to kind of have to predict that. That's going to be the average CPC, your average cost per click, your conversion rate, so also known as CVR, cost per conversion, which we're going to get with these two, our close rate, our profit margin, average ticket price, and monthly ad budget. So first off, average CPC. This is one of those things where you're probably not going to have a very accurate average CPC if you've never run any ads before. Okay. One way you can do this is you use the Google Keyword Planner tool. This is a free tool inside Google Ads. You just need to make a quick account. You might even be able to access it without an account. I'm not 100% sure about that though. But it's a free tool, so you don't have to spend any money to use it, okay? When you go in the Google Keyword Planner, you can type in the keywords. So type in things like if let's say you're a tax accountant, type in tax accountant. You can type in tax accountant near me. You can type in tax accountant with the name of the city that you're in and that you would be serving, okay? And then within that, you can write a location. So in the location, you put your city. Okay, then you press enter, and it's going to give you a low bid estimate and a high bid estimate. You want to take kind of the average of those two values, and you're going to take that and use that as your average CPC. Okay, there's other ways to do it. You can use other programs, but you can use programs like a SEMrush. But this is a paid tool, but it has a free component to it where you can do a couple keywords per day of research for free. Okay, so you can always research any kind of keyword, search keyword tool online, free search keyword that gives you an estimate, and you'll get an estimate from that. I would say the best way to get closer to what your real average CPC is going to be by just running an ad for a couple days. Okay, run a couple days, get a couple clicks, see what it's looking like, see what those average CPCs are looking like. Because the truth is, yes, Google Keyword Planner, it gives you an estimate, but the truth is the estimates, honestly, they can be very hit or miss in terms of what the actual cost is going to be. So this is one of those things where you do the best with what you have. If you've already got previous data, you've already ran ads, and great, go look into that. Go look at what your average CPC was there. If you don't, go use Google Keyword Planner. It's free. You'll get an estimate. And if you want to get an even better estimate, run an ad for a couple days. Okay, not really an expectance of getting any kind of results, but just to get a little bit of data back. And be able to look like, okay, this is, maybe you'll get 5-10 clicks. You'll have a better idea of your CPC. Okay. CVR, also known conversion rate. This is how many clicks do you need to get a lead. So this is one of those also it's going to vary a lot because it depends on how, it's going to vary a lot on your landing page. So how well is your landing page made? How well is it optimized to get conversions? Oh, if you don't have any data beforehand to kind of go off, you can go search on Google, what's the average conversion rate for your industry, okay, when it comes to leads. So you could write like landing page conversion rate for tax accountants in this case, okay? You'll get something. If you're a contractor, you can go write what your industry is, or just write general contractor conversion rates. Okay, you'll find something. I would say, a lot of times, if you're just going to estimate and you have like no idea at all and you have no data whatsoever, I would usually use around a 10% conversion rate. Personally, my conversion rates when I do stuff for other people, they tend to be higher. They tend to be usually more, 15%, 20%. If I'm getting, 25% plus, that's a very good conversion rate. Okay, so you want to still be somewhat conservative when you're doing estimates because, that's what you're basing your budget on. So if you have no idea, I would say 10% is not a bad conversion rate to go off of because that means about 1 in 10 clicks will turn into a lead. Okay. Cost per conversion. This you're just going to get using these two values. So basically, if you have we'll use examples here. Okay. So we'll say your average CPC, you did what you checked on Google Keyword Planner. It gave you a low bid. We'll say $5. It gave you a high bid estimate of $15. So we'll go kind of in between there. I don't know what this shape is. This is okay. This is what I want to do. Okay. An average of that, we'll say $10. Okay. So let's say your average CPC is $10. So $10 for every click. Conversion rate, we'll use a conversion rate of 10%. Like I said, if you have no idea, 10% is not a bad conversion rate to go off of. This is going to depend on, your industry and stuff, but if you're a contractor, I would say 10% is not too bad to go off of. You're probably going to want to try to get more than that once you actually start running, but to give you an estimate, it's not a bad one. Okay. So cost per conversion. To figure out your cost per conversion, you basically use these two numbers. So if you know your average cost per click is $10 and you convert 10% of those, that means you're going to need 10 clicks to get a conversion. So you do 10 times 10, okay, which would be $100. Okay, so let's say here we're getting $100 per conversion. Another word for conversion in this case is lead. Okay. Close rate. This is dependent on you guys. This is dependent on your business. You should probably already know your close rate before you run any kind of ads. And that's just how many leads you need to get, or inquiries, quotes do you need to do before you close a job. Okay. If you're a contractor, I would say a lot of times it's around 15 to 25%, somewhere around there. So you should kind of already know what your close rate is. If you don't, go check, your last couple months, how many people reached out to you. If you're a contractor, how many people reached out to you for a quote? Out of those people, how many did you close? Okay. In this case, obviously, you would write what your own close rate is. We'll write like 20% for here. So 20% close rate means that 1 in 5 people that come to you, you end up actually closing them and they actually end up paying you. So we can write here 1 in 5. Profit margin. This is also something you should probably know. I mean, this is definitely something you should know for your business. This is one of the most basic this is one of the most basic things to know for your business. Before you run any kind of ads, you should know your profit margin, okay? So for contractors, a lot of times profit margins, it doesn't vary that much. It can vary for sure a bit. Depends on how you're set up. A lot of times it's around 20%. So we'll say you have a 20% profit margin, okay? Average ticket price. This is how much are you on average charging someone for your service. If you have fixed price for all your services, I don't know, let's say you're like a beauty spa type of place. You probably already have fixed prices for everything. It's probably gonna be a little bit easier to figure out what your average, what's your most popular service, for example. You can kind of use that as your average ticket price. So even, you usually want to take basically the sum of all the charges you did, let's say within a couple months. You can use whatever time frame you want. The longer the time frame, the more accurate you'll have of an average ticket price. So let's say over the course of the month, you did 30 jobs, or 30 different jobs, yeah, and you add up all the revenue from those jobs, and you divide it by 30. It'll give you average ticket price. Okay, we'll say for this. Obviously, this really depends on what you're doing, but in this case, we'll just use an example of $5,000. If you're a contractor, that's not too crazy. Not 5,000%. Sorry. Now, if you're a beauty spa, if you're charging $5,000 on average, I would say that's pretty high. I don't know of any beauty spas where you're paying $5,000, but for contractors, that's very realistic. And then your monthly ad budget. Okay, so this is probably not super fixed at this moment. If you're trying to figure out what your ROI is going to be, it's probably not fixed what your monthly ad budget is. You can kind of play around with that number and see what kind of results you would get, depending on what your budget is. In this case, we'll use a budget of $3,000 per month. That means around $100 per day for Google Ads. Per month. Okay, so with all these numbers, once you have all this laid out, you can find your ROI. Now, how are you going to do that? Okay, let's start with the cost per conversion. Really, once you figure out your cost per conversion for the ROI, you don't really need these two numbers anymore. These two, the average CPC and the conversion rate, is really just so that you can find your cost per conversion. Okay. So we're not really going to be using those anymore. We're just going to be using these. So first off the bat, let's find out how much money you make on average in terms of profit per job. Okay. So let me kind of close this up. This is what we needed. So how much do we make profit per job? So you can take your $5,000. This is pretty simple calculation. Let me take this off just to not clutter it too much. Okay, so on average, we're charging $5,000 for every job. Your profit margin is 20% on that. So you just do times 20%. That gives you at $1,250, if I'm not mistaken. So, no, what am I saying? I am mistaken. That would be 25%. Sorry, I am mistaken. So 5,000 times 20% is $1,000. I'm sorry. So $1,000 profit. So every job you do, you make $1,000 profit. Okay, that's good to know. Now, you need $100 for every lead, and you close 1 in 5 of them. So what you're going to find is your cost per close, which I guess you could have added here. I should have added it there, to be honest. Cost per close. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your cost per conversion of $100. It costs me $100 to get 1 lead. And I get 1 in 5 of those, I close. So you do $100 times 5. That gives you $500 cost per close. Okay, so to close 1 client, you need to spend $500 on average. Great. So now we know that. So we have how much we make profit per person, and then we have how much it costs us to close 1 person. So let's find out how much clients are we actually closing per month. So we take our full monthly ad budget. So $3,000, then you divide that by your cost per close. $500, okay? And that equals 6 closes. So with $3,000, you can close 6 additional new people every month. With these numbers, of course. Okay, so if you close 6 people, how much are you actually making? Well, we know that 1 person is $1,000 profit. So you do 6 times what your average profit is going to be on a job, $1,000. So on average, you're making $6,000, and this is profit, of course, because we've already applied the profit margin and everything. Sometimes people will do this with gross revenue, so they wouldn't even use the profit margin. They would just look at gross. To me, I don't know. What's the point? You want to know what you're actually making. So you just use your profit. It's going to be, you're going to get a lot more of an accurate result, because then you're just going to get a huge ROI, but it's like you don't even count your profits in there. What are you actually profiting? It's not really worth that much to me. So at $3,000, you're making $6,000 profit per month. So with these numbers, okay? So then what you can do is once you have all this, we said our cost per close was 500 here. We can type that in. Now that we have all this, we can figure out our ROI. So to figure out your ROI, you want to do what your monthly profit is. So, like I said, some people use revenue. We're going to use profit. So we're going to do, profit is $6,000. Then you divide it by your monthly ad budget. Okay. So that gives you you could say $2. And really what that means, the $2, what that means is for every dollar that you spend, you get $2 back. So in this case, it's like basically every dollar that you spent, in this case, you double it. Okay. And then to get your ROI, which is a percentage, you just times that times 100, and that gives you 200%. In this case, we would write net ROI because we've already applied the profit margin. So if you hadn't applied the profit margin to it and you had used just your gross income, so instead of doing 1,000 here, I would have done times 5,000. I would have gotten obviously a much bigger number. I would have gotten a much bigger ROI, but that would be a gross ROI, so it wouldn't count the profits. So, like I said, you want to count your profits in there because that's really what matters at the end of the day. So in this case, your ROI would be 200%. That's pretty much it. If you guys want, I have a free tool like a free spreadsheet tool, interactive spreadsheet that basically you just type in your numbers. It's already kind of set up, so you just type in your own numbers, which is basically all these numbers, into the table, and it'll spit out for you your ROI. So if you want to do that, I'm getting hair in my eyes right now. If you want to do that, I'll leave the link down below, and you guys can get that. But if you guys want to do it manually or just understand how you do it, this is how you do it. That's it for me. Peace.